is Danna Bowman, co-founder of Thyroid Refresh.
And I'm Ginny Mahar, and we're here today with Mary Shomon, who we are so excited to have on our team. She's our resident thyroid expert and a New York Times best-selling author. She's published over a dozen books on health and especially thyroid health. So we're so lucky and proud to have her with us on this journey and to introduce you, to introduce all of you to her today. So welcome, Mary.
Hi.
Thank you. Hi, I'm so excited to be on with you folks.
We, Jenny and I, and probably most people, but for those couple of people out there who do not know your story and your journey, would you share a little bit about how you kind of got to where you are as Mary Shomon, the thyroid expert?
Sure. I can give you just the quick down and dirty summary. I was diagnosed with a thyroid problem back in 1995. And that was after actually a surprisingly short amount of repeat visits to my doctor. I went in and complained about gaining weight. I was feeling more tired. I was getting a little depressed. And probably the worst of all was I was in the process of getting married. And every time I went for a dress fitting, I was gaining a size instead of losing, which is the horror for anybody trying on wedding dresses. My doctor said, you know, we're going to check your thyroid. I had no idea what a thyroid was, what it did, anything about it. She ran a blood test. I get the phone call a few days later. Your thyroid is a little low. We're calling in a prescription. And I'm thinking, this is going to solve everything. I'm going to start this medicine like an aspirin for a headache. In a couple of days, it's all going to be back to normal. Well, surprise, not the case. And at that time, I was trying to find out, like, what else can I do? I was taking levothyroxine, which my doctor and I had decided was the best option, because in those days, back 20 plus years ago, who knew that there was anything else for the most part? And I started on the med, didn't feel well, kept gaining weight, still felt exhausted, still felt depressed. And I said, there's got to be more than this. So I got my trusty AOL disc. You ladies are probably too young to remember them.
No, I remember.
But, you know, you get your big disc, you put it in, you get your free access, and then you could get onto the internet, which in those days, you know, it felt like the Wild West. But you could get to Usenet groups, which were, you know, primitive forums for communications, and you could get on listservs, and you could get to some information from the National Library of Health. And I started to find out pretty quickly that thyroid disease was not, as many doctors, not mine, but others said, was so easy to diagnose and so easy to treat. And I was finding out I was not the only one. So I started putting together a web page, taught myself HTML, put some information up on the web, and that was kind of where it started. Months later, I went with a very new company called Mining Company to put information up in a coordinated place. That became about.com, which then got bought by the New York Times. And the rest is kind of history. It became one of their most popular health sites, my work on thyroid. And they used to laugh at me and say, oh, nobody's going to care about thyroid disease. Who cares about it? It's no big deal. And I said, you're going to find out. And it was true, because there were a lot of people that were frustrated, fed up, and wanted information. And all we were being told was, easy to diagnose, easy to treat, doesn't cause weight gain. Take your Synthroid or take your levothyroxine. You'll be back to normal in a few days, and come see me in a year. And people were losing babies, losing their marriages, getting depressed, losing their jobs, exhausted, in bed, getting heart disease, obesity, every symptom in the book. They were on cholesterol meds, antidepressants, anti-anxiety pills, heart medicine, diabetes medicine, developing every disease in the book as a result of a thyroid problem that wasn't being properly diagnosed or treated. So eventually my website also became a platform for me to write books as a lay patient advocate. And I have written, you know, more than a dozen books about thyroid, autoimmune disease, health, metabolism, and weight loss. And it's not what I planned as a young kid to say, oh, I want to grow up and be a thyroid patient advocate, but it's been a calling for me. I felt obligated to help other people fast forward up the learning curve so that they didn't sit there like I did and feel frustrated and hopeless, or even there were points in the middle of the night where I sat there and thought, I must have something fatal and they just haven't figured it out, because I feel so terrible and so hopeless about this. I don't think there's anything that's going to help me.
Wow, that's so cool, because Danna and I talk about that all the time. You know, this isn't something either of us ever imagined we would be doing, and yet here we all are. So I wanted to ask you, can you talk a little bit about the numbers as far as like, has the number of people with thyroid disease increased, or do you think it's that there's just more diagnosis? What have you seen from then to now as far as those statistics go?
Or awareness. And let me just add to that really quickly, because when you were talking a second ago, Mary, and you were saying, you know, all these things, I'm thinking it's the same thing that we hear patients say today. So what has changed, if anything or nothing? Because that was 1995, 6, 7, and here we are 2018 already. It's crazy.
Well, as far as the numbers, this has always been a challenge right from the beginning, from the earliest days. The epidemiology of thyroid disease is crazy. There's nobody that can tell you how many people in the United States have a thyroid problem. Because if you talk to the American Association of Clinical Endocrinologists, or the NHANES survey, or you look at the federal, agencies like the Health and Human Services that are looking at this, everybody's got a different idea. You can see anything from 13 million to 27 million people to up to 50 to 60 million people have thyroid disease. And then you can see that there's the vast majority of them under any scenario are undiagnosed. So we know that there is this large group of people that have a thyroid problem, they're not diagnosed. How many of them? We have no idea. And that also depends on how you view a normal range, because if you were looking at a very narrow normal range, a lot more people have a thyroid problem. If you widen it out the way they want it right now, basically everybody from the person with a giant goiter on their neck to the person who's hyperthyroid and jumping out of their skin, as long as you're not outside their numbers, you're normal. So then we could be talking about 70, 80, 90 million people in the United States could potentially have a thyroid problem. So are the numbers on the rise? I don't think so. And in terms of huge epidemic numbers, I think we are seeing some increases, probably due to toxic exposures and diet changes and things. But I think it's always been there. It's just always been blown off, overlooked, written off as you're stressed, depressed, hormonal. You have glandular issues, which they used to say, 50 years ago. You eat too much. She's, her metabolism is bad. She's, heavy set. That's her way. Or she's neurotic and stressed out. Or I think there's always been a big group of people that have a thyroid problem. They're just not getting picked up because they're blaming everything but the thyroid.
Right. So when people come to you and they say, Mary, tell me what to do, what's kind of your philosophy for helping people?
Okay. First, get informed. I mean, we live in a world where the average doctor visit lasts no more than 7 minutes. Doctors run in and out. They're double booked, triple booked. You're not going to have a lot of time with your doctor. And if you do have a great doctor who can spend time with you, you're likely going to be paying for it cash. It's not going to be part of your HMO or part of your insurance program. So it's incumbent on you to be essentially what some of us call the CEO of your own healthcare. Nobody else is going to do it for you. You have to do it for yourself. So if you think that it's the old days of Marcus Welby coming to see you for the house call and worrying about all these aspects of your health, those days are long gone. It's you on the internet, reading books, reading articles, keeping track of things, understanding your test results, getting copies of your own blood tests, and not just accepting the phone call from the nurse that says, the doctor says your thyroid is fine. No more. We need data, facts, paperwork, information. So that's my number one, is you've got to get informed and organized. Number two, you need to trust your own instincts. If you know that something is not right and nobody's listening to you, you trust your own gut. Go and find someone else who will hear you and talk with you and understand what's going on. Because I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who have lost babies in pregnancy to miscarriage, who have had, heart attacks, who have gained 80 pounds, who have all sorts of horrendous additional health and life implications because their doctor said, oh no, it's not your thyroid that's causing those issues in the pregnancy. And, 6 weeks later, they have a miscarriage and their TSH was 14 and nobody was paying attention. Or people that are told, oh, thyroid won't make you gain weight, and they get RAI for Graves' disease, and the next thing you know, 60 pounds later, 3 months later, with no change to diet and exercise. These are situations we know. We are in our bodies. We know what's going on. We may not have all the medical knowledge to dissect every little aspect of it, but if you have a gut feeling about it, I'm saying trust your gut. So that's number 2. And number 3 is recognize that the medical world and medical experts they're providers, they're vendors, they are service people for us. They are not ivory towered, gods and gurus up on pedestals to be worshipped blindly and listened to, without any discernment. We have to realize that there are bad doctors, there are good doctors, there are bad nutritionists and good ones. We need to make the decision that if somebody is not solving the problem, we get rid of them and move on. And I've used this example in some of my classes. I know, Danna, you've heard me say this. If you have a plumber who comes back time and time again and can't fix your toilet, do you keep saying, I'm going to keep giving this plumber another chance to fix my toilet? Or do you get a plumber who can? And I'm sorry, I'm not saying that that the education a doctor goes through is the same as what a plumber goes through, but the ultimate end goal is they're providing a service and they're supposed to be fixing something. And if they can't fix it, you don't stay with them. You find someone who can. And I've heard people say, oh, but he's so nice. Well, I've had very nice plumbers who couldn't fix anything. It doesn't mean I don't like them, but I want the one who comes who fixes it. So I tell people, look, doctors are not magical beings. They are not somebody that deserves any more or different treatment than anybody else. I'm not saying you have to be rude or obnoxious or tell them, oh, you're fired, I can't stand you, but rather, hey, this isn't working out. We're not making progress on the goals that I'm trying to find. I'm really going to need to go elsewhere to get my support that I need. And that's being assertive, not being aggressive. It's being assertive. And that's something that, because thyroid disease affects women so much more often than men, we are often afraid to speak up, to use our voice, to stand up for ourselves with our family, our friends, our doctors, all the authorities in our lives. And this is a good learning place for all of us to practice that skill, is in taking care of ourselves and providing that kind of self-care that helps us get well and stay well.
And speaking your truth, because we do, as thyroid patients, have a hard time, like you said, speaking up and speaking our truth. And that's basically what Mary's saying is listen to your body and speak up. It's not easy, but speak up, right?
Right. Yeah,
wow.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for that, Mary. I feel like we just got a pep talk from Mary Shomon. How lucky are we? And so awesome to have you with us. So number 1, get informed. This is such great advice, you guys. Get informed. 2, trust your own instincts. And 3, recognize that our healthcare professionals work for us. I think that's so true. I know it's definitely so much of this journey I feel grateful for, because it's pushed me out of my comfort zone and it's forced me to be more outspoken. And I think that's something that we all have to do together as, a united force, advocating for ourselves, because when we do that, we advocate for each other. And you have to say, this isn't okay with me. I want more. I need more answers.
Absolutely. And I think that's where something like Thyroid Refresh and Thyroid 30 come in, is especially in items number 1 and 2, and in supporting number 3. Number 1, in terms of getting informed, there are a lot of great sources of information. I mean, people can go read medical journals and newsletters and websites and things, but they want to have a starting place, to have information in a way that they can understand, that's presented to them in an understandable and clear and patient-focused way. And that's one of the things that we're providing with Thyroid Refresh and Thyroid 30, is that kind of empowerment of the information and helping people get organized, giving them goals, giving them marks to hit every day and objectives and things. That helps us take control of our own healthcare. And then in terms of the concept of being empowered, speaking your truth, standing up for yourself, this is something that is so helpful when it's done with the support of other people who've been there. When you realize you're not the only one whose doctor told you you're stressed, depressed, PMS, menopausal, eating too much, get off the couch, lazy, blah, 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 whatever the ridiculous thing. When you realize not only are you not the only one, but there's 50 other women who've heard the same thing, you don't feel like it's you. All of a sudden you realize there's power in numbers. Mm-hmm. And somebody in there has got solutions to share with you from a woman to woman or person to person perspective that is going to click with you. Just like, we crowdsource ideas with our friends. We say, I'm going to have a dinner party. What should I make for an appetizer? And we ask 4 or 5 friends and they give us ideas. Well, somebody's going to give us a great idea that we love. The same thing with this. And these kinds of efforts like Thyroid 30 and Thyroid Refresh provide a platform for us to make friends, to find empowering people to take that journey with us. And there's power in numbers.
Absolutely. And you nailed it. That's exactly what we're trying to do. And we're trying to make that process fun. I mean, it is a lifestyle. It does, I think personally I've found living, with thyroid disease in feeling healthy and vibrant, it is a lifestyle. It is something I think about every single day. And if it's not fun, it's got to be fun. We need to have that support and togetherness. And one of our mantras that we, say all the time is, it's amazing what we're capable of when we have the support that we need. So thank you so much for all that you bring to the table. And we're so excited to go on this journey together. And to have you with us on that journey.
Well, I'm excited too. I applaud you both for creating this really cool and exciting and innovative approach for thyroid patients. I mean, as we know, we've been kind of marginalized for a long time, and we're coming into our own. And this is going to be a really good part of a new day for thyroid patients around the world. So I'm very excited.
Thanks, awesome. Mary. Okay, guys.
Thank you so much.
That's it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.